I'm Janine Cagmore with the Palos Heights Public Library.
And I'm Catherine Cross, also at the Palos Heights Public Library.
Right, and we're here to bring together a new show for you today called Then and Now. And on this show, we're going to take a peek back into the history of Palos Heights and then take a look at what it changed to. And Catherine, you're actually an ideal co-host for the show because of your background. You know, many people know you from the Palos Heights Library. You're a public services librarian, but they might not be familiar with your education. You have 2 master's degrees. You had your library science degree, but you also have a second degree in public history. And you were also trained and interned at the National Archives in Chicago, which that's where you base a lot of your work on in the local history department at the library. And you're also keenly instrumental in the local history video project that we did for the city on the story of Palos Heights, which is a video story of Palos Heights, where you listen to hundreds of hours of oral histories of people from the past. We'll talk a little bit about that later.
And Janine also has a similar background. She works as the head of public services at the library, also worked on the video along with me last year. She specialized in archives in her library science degree. And also you trained at the National Archives as well.
Not at the same time you did, but
yeah, close to the same time, not quite. And you're also the author of the Arcadia local history book on Tailless Park. You bring a lot of local history background yourself.
Right. So we have a great duo, and we're excited to bring this new show. So we're gonna take a look at a history that's hidden in plain sight in Palos Heights. So what do we have on the first picture here, Catherine?
Is the Palos Heights Pharmacy, also known as Reenie's, one of the first businesses that was built in Palos Heights, actually, and a lot of people know it.
Where is this location now?
It was this one was built at 12309 Harlem. So the building is still there today.
Okay. So looks like, that's off of Harlem Avenue back in what year?
That is in 1940. So it was, they actually opened the pharmacy right at the end of 1940 in December. And it was operated, the guy standing right out front there with the dog, that's Vince Reenie, who was the pharmacist who started it with his wife, Anne.
Now that was unusual back then, right? They were the only pharmacy for quite a distance, correct?
They were, yeah. I think I read that they were, he was the sole pharmacist between like Oak Lawn and Lockport. So like people from all over the area had to come to this pharmacy that was the only one available for all kinds of things.
And they came by horse, right, Catherine?
They did, which brings us to our second photo here, which shows in the saddle there is Vince and Anne Reenie's son, Lou Reenie, with Vince Reenie standing behind him. But the horse has an interesting background. That's the Fred Mulhausen's horse, who was a resident of Tailless Park. So he would actually come by horseback to pick up his purchases from the store. I think this photo itself is 1942. So
yeah, it's funny, Catherine, that you bring this up, because I remember I interviewed Fred Mulhausen for the book when I was back in Tailless Park back in 2014, and he told me many stories about riding his horse to the pharmacy. So when I saw this photograph, I was like, oh my gosh, I know this story.
Oh my gosh.
There's a man who did that. And I actually Palos Park was a much older community, but they didn't have the retail that Palos Heights did. So many people did come to Palos Heights to do their shopping. And of course, many people came to the Palos Heights Pharmacy, not just for medicinal purposes, but also because they had like a soda fountain there, correct?
They did, yeah. Which this is one of my favorite photos that I've seen of Reenie's, this soda fountain. People would come from, all the young people in town would come to hang out at this soda fountain, and you could see it's exactly what you would be thinking like a soda fountain would look like in the 40s. And just talking about some of the teenagers, I know we've heard a lot about what the the teenagers were doing in the 40s. Anne Reaney herself like talked in one of the oral histories I listened to. She talked about how they would come into the shop, and it was really kind of the only place for them to go for in town. There wasn't much there, so she talked about
talking about
the teenagers, yeah, because there just wasn't that much to do. She told a story of in the early 40s, like in the one, it might have even been their first New Year's in the shop, that the several teenagers were just kind of standing outside the store without anything to do that night, and she asked them, you know, what's going on, and they said, oh, can you please just open up, and like, can we hang out, because we have nowhere else to go for the evening for midnight. And so they opened up the shop, and teenagers were just, the group of them were able to come and hang out in the store with Vince and Anne and play music, and she made sandwiches for them. So it was kind of like several of them like talked about just they were kind of like a second set of parents for the people of the town.
Yeah. And I think you also had mentioned before that even in the summertime outside, they would project movies on the side brick wall on a white sheet spread on the wall so that the kids could come by and watch movies.
That's
so
right.
Kind of a community hub of some sort.
It's true. Yeah.
For during wartime period as well, right?
That's true. Yeah. She also mentioned that like a lot of they would have parties for all of the young men that when they were going off to war, like the young man on the right there, so each time it would be like a succession throughout, as each of them were called up, they would have another party, and became kind of that place where people would go to say goodbye to their community, and that gathering spot for everybody.
Wow, so it's got kind of a, you know, incredible piece of history during a very important time period. Mm-hmm. Before the young men go off to war, they were able to have a memorable event with family and friends. It's very cool. And what do we got next?
This shows the building after they actually sold it. So or moved into another building actually. In 1967 was when the Reeneys moved to a new location, which right nearby, it was 123rd 17 South Harlem. But this building was turned into that medical arts building there. So you can see in 1968 what it looked like. A little different since it's got some different signage, but the same spot. That brings us to what it looks like today. The facade you can see behind the strip mall there. I'm sure a lot of people have driven by it and you don't even know what it is if you notice it at all. It just kind of looks like a funny building.
Right, this is across the street. I was standing in the parking lot of Franklin's, and actually I was sitting at the intersection of 123rd and Harlem Avenue, and I looked and I was like, wow, that building, I wonder how many people know that weird white part of that building sticking up. What piece of history this building, that's the original building, is that correct?
That is the original building, yeah. That's been there since 1940.
Then that's the next one. You want to show it?
Yeah, that is that original building.
That we saw in 1940 when it was when nothing was around. Mm-hmm. And now today, is that building there that is kind of behind the false front of the other mall that was built around there, the strip mall.
Yeah, it's just kind of interesting. You can see kind of how some of this history is hiding in plain sight almost.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, great. So thanks for solving that mystery on Reeney's Pharmacy then and now. What else have we got hiding in plain sight here, Catherine?
Another thing we've got hiding in plain sight. I wonder if anybody can guess what this building actually is.
It's somewhere in Palos Heights of something of significance of our history, correct?
Exactly, yes. Something that, everybody will know the name of what it is. But when you look at that building...
To me, right now, it looks like a house.
It does. It looks just like a house. But let me show you exactly what it is.
Okay.
It's the regional building.
Okay.
Yeah. And it actually didn't start as the regional building. So when you first see that first picture there, that was, it started as the Bartlett Realty office. So Bartlett, yes, it was Robert Bartlett, and he was the first, the guy that actually basically started Tailless. He planned everything out of the community and had his real estate office to sell plots of land, to sell houses here. And
So he was a land developer in Palos
land
Heights.
developer, yes, yeah. And he was here for many years to sell people this vision of living out in the country and this rural environment when there was very little around. And uh, and that was that building. Let me see what the address was. That was 12243 South Harlem.
Okay.
I mean, one of the interesting things I remember reading is that he actually had even had erected an observation platform on the building at some point too, so that he could invite clients out to view the way the Tailless as it was from that vantage point, because he had a great vantage point of Tailless from there. I mean, you can imagine there wasn't much even like anywhere there at the time.
You know, it's funny because I remember there was something in the oral histories that we listened to of one of his sons standing on the top of that observatory center, and there's a photograph of what's across the street.
Mm.
And if you're thinking of where the regional is today and you look across the street, you're going to see Those Guys Bakery and the Chalet Floors. Well, from that back then, what year is this are we talking about?
That would have been in the early 40s when that
When you
between
look over Harlem, which of course, if you look at the bottom left corner of this photograph, you see that Harlem was Highway 42A.
that's right.
Under the 40.
Yeah, it wasn't even 43 yet. Yeah.
So if you're looking across west across Harlem, and the photograph from that, what would be across from this building was nothing, just grass farmland.
Yeah.
So
Hard
that's
to imagine.
a hard thing to imagine because there's so much built up right now, you know, today.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're looking across from that building that you're looking at right now, folks, across from Harlem West, it would be nothing but open fields.
Hard to picture until you see the photos. Yeah. And here's just a closer view of that building from the other side, from the side of the building, because you can still see that sign on the front, which would have been off of Harlem. So,
Oh yeah, I see that.
yeah, just a cool way to look and see how what it looked like back then.
Okay.
And some
Who's
of the
this
things.
guy?
Yeah, this is Harwell E. West. He was actually the creator and first publisher of the Tailless Regional, which that newspaper on the right shows the first issue. That was a commemorative issue here. But October 7th, 1941 was when he published the first issue. It was just like a brochure. And actually in the local history room, we actually have some of those old, from the first few years, they were all brochures. We've got those brochures.
Paper copies.
Yeah.
The original, and then we also have on digitized all the regionals from back from 1941, correct?
Yeah, yeah, and you can search those. You can find all kinds of old stories in there, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, he operated it until he sold it to these guys, Carl and Virginia Richards, who are pictured there. They bought the newspaper in 1947.
For how much?
$100.
$100 in
$100.
1947, you said?
1947.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And actually, like right there is.
How long did they own it? I mean, for decades, right?
They did, yeah. Until I believe it was until very recently, the family sold it very recently, but it went from between Carl Richards, who's pictured there, and then his son Charles Richards, and then Charles Richards' daughter Amy. So it stayed in the family for many, many years before it sold. So it's got a long, long history in Tailless Heights with the local owners.
Okay. Oh, what do we got here?
This is actually an example of just one of the popular dog vaccination drive that they had in Tailless Heights. So this was actually sponsored by the regional. This is, I believe this is the 12th annual dog clinic they had. So in 1959, and they would sponsor this every year to vaccinate the community's dogs, because if you can imagine what the community was like in the 40s and 50s, there were no veterinarians in town at all. So
it also reminds me of something we heard in a one of the oral histories about the packs of dogs that would run around the community.
That's
And
right.
one lady talked about one of the reasons they needed, because this was unincorporated at this, the city was unincorporated for quite a while. There was quite a fight for that. But one of the reasons people said we need a police force to deal with the packs of dogs. And she talked about the packs of dogs that were snarling outside. She couldn't even let her outside of the house because there was a pack of dogs having a fight, and she was afraid for her kids. And it's just like, that's just a piece of history I would not have thought about.
No,
Not
never.
today, even though we have all the, leash laws and everything like that. But yeah, another little something that we wouldn't have known.
Never, yeah. I mean, then they had to bring veterinarians in from outside just to take care of their animals. So it was just very rural. Not
Sponsored by the regional. So the regional did a lot of social awareness type of things as
they
well.
did, yeah.
What do we got on the other slide?
This was about the time that they started tearing down that building. So the regional building was there since Bartlett had built it in the early 40s. And then by 1962 was when the regional actually decided, the Richards family decided to tear that down and to build a new building. So this building has been actually gone since 1962 until they, which another photo of Carl Richards in front of the new building, which you can see there, which went up that same year in 1962. And
That's from photos from 1962. That's not the big snowfall we had.
Well, yeah. This building was built in 1962, but this is actually, yeah, from our history collection of the 1968, 67 snowfall, when everything got dumped on with all those, with the several feet of snow. So that's him shoveling out the front of the building.
Yeah.
And again, in front of the newer building, that's Carl's son, Charles, in front of that building after he had taken over. And like I said, he ran the newspaper for many, many years, and he didn't retire until 2005 when he turned it over to his daughter.
Okay. So what does it look like today?
There it is today. A lot of you probably drive by this all the time. It's just part of the strip mall now. It's on, and you might, yeah, and you would never know that there was another building there before that. This one has has been there for a long time itself, and
Right. Right. When we looked at Reni's, we could still see that part of the pharmacy is still there. Well, and on this view, on for this regional, there is no markings of any old building. What was there before?
right.
We have to rely on our photographs and our records to know what things looked like back then.
Mm-hmm.
And, Catherine, this is all of the photographs you showed. Are they available in the library?
Yeah, they're actually being these ones have all been digitized, and it's all going into the library's digital photo archive. So soon we're going to have that available for people to easily access online. But everything's kind of continually getting. We're still in the stages of adding them in there. So then, and we've got a lot of new photos. Actually, a lot of them from the regional, from their history, that are going to be put into that archive, which is going to become kind of the preservation of the regional's history, and it was actually Tailless Heights history, because so much of the history of the town came through the newspaper. So
Right.
luckily
yeah, we forget in today's time, newspapers are playing a different role, or we get our news from so many different avenues, different formats. Back then, newspapers were the way people got news, and actually they did very much become a recorder of history.
mm-hmm.
So back then we had, and this again was what year?
This was after the late 40s. I don't have an exact year on it, but the late 40s.
Okay.
And then one more view back to today.
Another view of the corner of 123rd in Harlem.
Yeah.
So next time you drive past the regional, folks, and you're stuck at that stoplight, you have time to think, remember what was in place before then, and the people who took time, and the families that took time to record the history of this city and build on this city, this community. So
Exactly.
anything else we got there, Catherine?
I think that's all we've got for today.
So that's for then and now, for now. Stay tuned for our next episode. Catherine and I we can quit sharing, and then want to quit sharing the screen, Catherine?
Sorry, 1 second.
Yeah, that's okay. Right, so that's it for now, for then and now. And Catherine and I will be back next time. Thank you all for joining us. Catherine, thank you always for your expertise. Loved listening to all the stories that you've learned. And we'll see all you folks next time on Then and Now.
Thank you. See you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.